Ladies and gentlemen, hit subscribe to this channel right now. The Supreme Court is about to give President Trump and the Republican Party a major victory. The Supreme Court is looking at a case pertaining to gerrymandering and redistricting of congressional districts in Louisiana. Democrats throughout the country, if the Supreme Court rules, the Supreme Court just dropped a hint about its next big Voting Rights Act case and a pending case on Louisiana's congressional map. The justices ordered a briefing on whether it's constitutional to intentionally draw majority black districts. If the Supreme Court rules that it is unconstitutional to draw districts based on race, this is a huge defeat for the Democratic Party. The Democrats talk so much about how they really care about people of color and the working class and all different types of demographic groups. When was the last time you heard any Democratic politician talk about alleviating or a solution to poverty, addressing the issue of poverty, for example, that affects everyone in the country? When was the last time you heard the Democratic Party or a Democratic politician say, we are going to make it our platform to end poverty in the United States of America, or at least within our respective congressional districts or states? You haven't heard that because they don't care. So that's number one. Number two, it's going to really hurt the Democratic Party. Actually, it's going to be devastating politically for the Democratic Party if the Supreme Court prevents Democrats from gerrymandering based on race. Hit subscribe. Listen to this. This is Justice Alito talking about the constitutionality or just the logic behind redistricting based on skin color. This is a huge defeat that essentially just took place because if you look right now, Supreme Court raises the stake. The court ordered a new briefing suggesting it would be poised to further weaken the landmark. It's not going to weaken the Voting Rights Act. It'll weaken the Democratic Party. But media is making it seem like it's hurting people of color, minorities. It's not at all. It's hurting the Democratic Party, which, by the way, doesn't focus on addressing issues like increased employment opportunities in lower socioeconomic areas throughout the country, ensuring that crime and violence, drugs, and all the things that you see in major Democratic-run cities. They're not addressing the issues important to all Americans, especially those living in urban areas. They're simply focused on political power, which is exactly why, when this takes place, the Democrats are going to, it's going to be like the end of the world. The Supreme Court is going to rule that it's unconstitutional. They basically already did. They're foreshadowing everything with this latest development. But listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. Check this out. This is Samuel Alito, and you will hear how illogical it is to just create congressional districts based on skin color. Check this out.
Well, let me ask you a question about illustrative District 5 that was before the Middle District of Louisiana in the Robinson case. So that district combined black populations near Baton Rouge and Lafayette in the southeast region of the state with splotches of black populations near Monroe, Bastrop, and Tallulah in the far northeast corner of the state. Now, how can the failure to combine these far distant populations in a map, in a single district, be regarded as the cracking of a concentration of black voters?
Well, the district court recognized that our illustrative maps were more compact, split fewer parishes than the state's map in creating a new majority black district, and that is the
map scored well on those criteria. But how can that be regarded as cracking?
Those populations, the way the effects test under Section 2 works, and again, I would, those determinations are, were made in the Middle District in litigation that the state chose not to appeal. So those have not been part of this litigation. But to answer your question, the way the effects test works is it looks at the way the map is drawn and whether it could be drawn differently so that it would not have those dilutive impacts.
Yeah, I understand that. Not only are these populations distant from each other, isn't it the case that they differ in some fundamental respects and therefore may not be part of the same community of interest? The concentration near Baton Rouge and Lafayette are people who live in urban areas. The people who are way up in the northeast part of the state live in rural areas, small towns. Their values may be quite different, much more religious perhaps than the people down in the other part of the state. Isn't that true? And just one last question. Doesn't voting in the 2024 election substantiate that?
Hey, if you want
Your Honor, the district court looked at the evidence of the shared interests, and the district court in Robinson looked at the evidence of the shared interests among these communities that were drawn together in our illustrative districts. That was part of the evidence that we put on. The court heard testimony from lay witnesses. The court heard testimony from expert witnesses about how they identified those shared interests and how they drew the maps. And so the court made a determination that there were shared interests among the black voters that were in that district and that they would be advanced by having an opportunity to elect a candidate of choice.
All right, thank you.
Justice Sotomayor? Problem on.
So what you're getting is I'm not saying it's the Democratic Party's point of view completely, but you're getting the rebuttal to Justice Alito. Well, we had experts saying that urban voters share the same interest as rural voters. These are experts. And they testified that that's the case. Does that make sense to you? So if you are creating congressional maps based solely upon race or skin color, which Democrats want to do, in this case, for example, you're going to try to create some kind of very bizarre map that encompasses both urban and rural, both urban and rural electorate, which obviously almost always have different, or there are many differences there between those two types of electorate. The issue, ladies and gentlemen, is the following. If Democrats cannot utilize this issue if the Supreme Court says you cannot use you can't use the race to draw congressional maps, that could impact the number of seats that they contest, that they have. So it's a razor-thin margin in the House right now. Republicans barely have the majority of the House of Representatives. If you take that away from Democrats, they lose political power. And so that's the issue. There's also another really, really interesting moment here.
And third,
final judgment. And that's a little awkward to say that a preliminary injunction, which even in the existing litigation has no binding effect going forward, right? I mean, you get a PI, you can lose on the merits. Happens all the time, right? So what do we do about that?
well, I think first, Your Honor, in the region around the circumstances, it
happens all the time, right? So what do we do about that?
Well, I think first, Your Honor, this court has found good reasons on much less than that. It's found good reasons based on, legislature's analysis of past election results, on demographics of districts and turnouts.
No, I understand that,
like
but here it's based on a court action. But the court action was preliminary.
It was preliminary in a very formal sense, but the record in Robinson was very robust. It was a 5-day evidentiary hearing. The court heard from 21 witnesses. There were hundreds of exhibits, and the court made a reasoned decision based on that record. And not only was the district court's decision, but that decision was then affirmed by the Fifth Circuit with the benefit of this court's decision in Milligan that found that the district court had correctly identified a likely violation of Section 2. And so under any circumstances, that, under this court's precedent, that's more than enough to find good reasons for the state to engage in remedial redistricting.
Well, it was not only a preliminary injunction, it was a preliminary injunction that was vacated by the Fifth Circuit because there was no longer any irreparable harm at the time when the Fifth Circuit decided the appeal. And the Fifth Circuit said, we're not convinced that this is the right result. This will be the right result in the end.
So you can see the conservative justices are not having any of it. It's going to be likely 6-3, 5-4. Huge defeat for Democrats. Could cost them seats in the House of Representatives. Hit subscribe to this channel. We'll do a live stream on this soon.